USA get the 1-0 win over Germany to advance to the gold medal match of the Paris Olympics. That match taking place on Saturday. Opponent TBD so far. But it came down to an extra time goal in the 95th minute by Sophia Smith. We have to talk about the 90 minutes prior to that, because there were 90 minutes of football that had a lot of momentum shifts. It had good tactics from both sides. It had a game plan. Sandra, you talked about how the tactics employed by both teams looked interesting at the start of this game. What did you notice, and what do you think both sides were trying to accomplish?
I think Emma Hayes was trying to maybe target some wider areas out on the flank there. I think we saw that fluctuating three back at one point, five in the middle. How are they gonna target that goal with two front runners? And sometimes it was working, and other times it wasn't. And we got to see some more in game fluctuations there as well, which I think for me I was most impressed with for this team. I think that's a lot to kind of present to your players, not only in a short build up to these Olympics, but throughout an Olympic tournament. And their response to that as players, absolutely showing off their IQ throughout the duration of the Olympics. But I think for me in this game in particular, it also, I think, presented some interesting moments for Germany as well, because we definitely got to see them try to sneak through at moments. I think we saw another game in that middle third where they were targeting Haran at moments. And again, this was the sequel, right? That's what I've been referring to it as. And sometimes when you've got that other game in behind you and footage to go off of, you maybe try to look at some areas to exploit, and they were obviously doing that in the middle third there. And the team was maybe struggling in some moments to try to make sure that they could eliminate those errors. So I think over the course of the 90 minutes, you just sort of felt like that there was still enough there to have gotten something through on goal. And so it being scoreless at halftime with 6 shots and 5 attempts on target, and I was kind of like, this doesn't feel ideal, but there's still time here and enough cohesion by this team to go ahead and maybe springboard one of their attacks in front of goal and sneak this out of this game with a result in 90 minutes.
It looked really promising from the US in the opening 7 minutes. There were three shots on target already for the US. And I was like, great. They are just going to keep rolling, continue to gain momentum and keep possession, have the tempo of the game be dictated by Sam Coffey and so much of the midfield. But Germany really was able to kind of sit back and say, okay, USA, you're going to do what you want to do right now, and then we will disrupt you. And Germany did that because they had good possession. Around the 20th minute, it was a spell, long spell of Germany controlling the ball, going centrally down the middle, those then sending it wide in the final third to cross the balls in. And USA looked gappy with their central movements, their spaces between their defensive line and their midfield line and their front line. And when US was in possession, they almost couldn't connect with their front line. Like there was just a hair off, whether it was a little bit of tired legs or what they were trying to do. But the tempo shifts and controlling of the momentum really fluctuated throughout the first half and then even into the second half. But Darian, tactically, and when you look at what USA and Germany were trying to do, what were they trying to do?
Well, as Sandra said, I totally agree. I think it asked a lot of both teams to change tactically in the run of game. US looking to isolate, get end line, cut the ball back. The German defense is so smart. You you cannot keep up physically with the front line of the US. The speed, the reading the game, the being hopeful on the end of balls, anticipating where they're going to pop off. The Germany's defense did so well picking apart those passes, doing well on the 1v1s, covering for each other. So the US tried to go through the middle of the park. Germany adjusts. We'll go through the middle of the park. I think we actually saw the US have far more tired legs, specifically in Haran. Lavelle was overworking at times where she's not on the ball in the spaces where the US really needed her to be to facilitate passes into the front line or just start dribbling, running at people. And I think Germany took over in the middle of the park and were able to break the US down with a lot of 1-2s. Brandt was brilliant. Once she started to dribble, once she realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to send a ball and down the line and we're going to be able to outrun Fox Germa. Great. Let's middle of the park. And I think it was fun to see questions being asked of both teams that are so strong tactically and both of them adjust. And ultimately, the US, I think, did it so well. Like, nobody can handle the US front line. And this game fully proved it against a really strong German defense.
Jewel Brand, when she got the ball, she was splitting defenders. She was taking
It was
on
gliding.
two defenders at once and doing it from more of a central role than we're used to seeing Jewel Brand do. She tends to be more of a wider player, but because Germany was stacking everyone centrally at times, that's where Brand went. And then she had to adjust. Frankly, I liked her centrally. I think she had more freedom.
I totally agree. One thing I realized Germany did too, Haran, who we've talked a lot about, loves to take a lot of touches on the ball. She's a very technical player. She likes to drive the tempo of how a team is going to play. I think Germany snuffed that out. They were sending 1, 2 players on her, knowing she wants to keep it on her right foot. And I think we saw them pick the ball off of her so many times. And I thought that was a brilliant just foresight by them to take advantage of that and then try to attack. But it's going to be interesting to see how the US adjusts to that against Brazil or Spain in the next round, because I think that was a big weak area for the US in this game was the midfield.
It was a smart tactical game plan by Germany for sure. I think even without some of these players that they didn't have available for this match, not only did they have that previous game against them in the group stage to go over highlights, but let's be frank, they've had a number of games that they could go back and maybe look at the US's middle third and say, here are some things that we want to target. And it was evident today. We saw Haran get swamped, double teams that time, and struggled with that. Maybe when you add in that extra layer of some of the physicality that the Germans can bring, it was a tough start for sure.
Sandra, what was that stat? 11 fouls in the first 45 minutes?
Yeah, like most ever, like in an Olympic game. Incredible stat by the Germans. Congratulations to them.
I mean, it's a good game
In
plan.
this Olympic Games.
Hard. Yeah,
Shout
in
out,
this
Adri.
in 2024, 11 fouls in the first 45 minutes. For the US against Japan, it was 11 fouls total in that entire match. So definitely a lot of physicality, but Germany having success in what they could do with the ball, right? When they were in possession, Germany got really expansive at time and forced the US defensively to shift their entire formation, swinging the ball from the left and then going like 20 yards down the field, and then Germany quickly 2 passes and the ball is back on the right. So switching that point of attack and really being patient in their buildup, it asked a lot defensively of the US, which on top of tired legs, playing a lot of games, not a lot of rotation in the lineup and substitutes, can at times be worrying, right? To see the US running around. But overall, they managed it pretty well. At halftime, we got to see one sub from Emma Hayes. Emily Sonnet came in for Tierna Davidson in the back line. And then in the 60th minute, one more sub. Lynn Williams checked on for Rose Lavelle, which dropped Mallory Swanson a little bit deeper into the midfield. Were these the right changes, Sandra, and at the right time?
I think the Emily Sonnet sub is gonna raise some questions. I echo Darian's sentiments about maybe the game planning for player minute load into this game. You know that you have one of your preferred starters who is dealing with a knee contusion. They said to reporters in France that the swelling was something that they were trying to work with Davidson on over the course of the last 9 days. And so now here you are in a semifinal in these knockout rounds, and it's a gamble. It is. It's a maybe how you're thinking high risk, high reward, but depending on who you ask, maybe burning a sub at halftime for one of your preferred 11 players maybe wasn't the high reward that you think you could give. Although credit to Sonnet, I think she held her own. And again, I'm going to give kudos to Lynn Williams in this one. I do think for that moment it was the right sub. You have to take a look at the players who are coming off, and in this case, Lavelle for Williams, and Williams providing not only fresher legs in this case, but really showing off again some of her strongest attributes as an attacking player. I love seeing her in the counter press, defensive pressing moments, making the extra runs to try to retain the ball or win back the ball. And sometimes in the later, especially in the later stretches of this game, that is what this game called for. So I do like the Lynn Williams sub especially.
Darian, with subs, tactics, technical stuff, what would you have done differently in 90 minutes?
Well, I wouldn't have started Tierna Davidson. Yeah, that one, it baffled me. I said it before. I don't want to repeat myself. Let the girl rest. Use her in the final for 90 minutes if you can. That didn't make any sense to me to sub a center back. Those are typically two positions you don't want to change. That is the solid backbone. Them and your keeper, you don't change in a game. So, okay, let's go on to Lynn. Yes, I would have definitely taken out Lavelle for Williams. I think that that was a brilliant sub because even though we didn't see Lynn really get in super dangerous positions on the field, the threat of Lynn Williams is scary. What she can do to a back line, her speed, her finishing ability. She already has a goal in this tournament. It's going to change the way that you defend. The US, okay, are they going to look to go long? Well, Germany's now going to step back and give you space in the front. Now Swanson can thrive. This is where we saw Swanson start to get on the ball more, start to go 1v1, sending balls forward, which is what I wanted to see from Lavelle in the first half. So I think that that was a brilliant sub, and I actually really like the way that Hayes subbed in this match. I think maybe she listened to the pod and heard everybody freak out over the lack of subs from the last match. But I thought it was really good, resting Dunn, getting Neiswanger in. I would have liked to see Neiswanger have a bit more service, maybe that looked a little bit cleaner, what we're typically used to seeing from her. But I thought the subs were really great in this match. Wouldn't have changed anything besides just having Sonnet start if that's what she was going to do anyways.
Yeah, I definitely think Lavelle needed to come out when she did at 60 minutes. She looked tired, especially with the physicality of the game, right? You don't want Lavelle to get hurt. I wanted to see Jaden Shaw. I did. I don't know when we could have seen her, maybe in the 80th minute, sub her in, have a little bit more creativity in the attack for the United States to kind of close out regulation and push to get a result before you head into extra times and put another 30 minutes on these players' legs. But that didn't happen. We still haven't seen Jaden Shaw in this match and in this tournament so far, which is interesting to me because she was on the full roster and then taken off for all of the match days, and now she's been back on. But we haven't seen Shaw yet. She can provide a lot in those lineups and all those changes. But ultimately, US ends regulation against Germany 0-0. So we are headed into extra time. More time for these players to compete. What changes are going to happen, especially because towards the end of the 90 minutes, a lot of momentum going towards US.